So welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is John with SwingFit. So in today's video, I'm going to take an approach that I never have done before. And what I'm talking about is I'm not going to try to sell you on the value of the club fitting process or talk about all of the benefits about the club fitting process and how it can help you hit the ball farther, how it can help you tighten up your dispersion, how it can help you drop your scores, lower your handicaps to play better golf. I mean, these are all byproducts that really can be achieved if you do go through the club fitting process, but today, that's not my focus. My focus is to help you understand, is there such a thing as a good bad shot? And if you've been through the fit process before, you may have even heard your fitter make this statement a time or two, and at the moment, you may have scratched your head going like, what the heck is this guy talking about? A bad shot is a bad shot, right? No, not necessarily. And if I'm being honest, the number one objective I have when I take my customers through the fitting process is to turn their bad shots into good shots into great shots. And all of those other things we talked about will happen as a byproduct. And in today's video, I have the perfect illustration to drive this point home. So without further delay, let's jump in. So before we get too deep into the weeds, I do want to take a quick second to welcome any new viewers to the channel. So if this happens to be your first time, or if you're just passing through and you are really interested in learning more about the club fitting process, then I promise you, you're in the right location, and all you have to do is consider hitting that subscribe button below and turn on the bell so that way you don't miss out on any of our new content. So now let's roll up our sleeves to help you understand, what do I really mean when I say that was a good bad shot? And in order to help me illustrate this, I want to walk you through a real-world fitting example where we recently took a customer out of last year's Sim 2 8-degree driver, and we swapped out the heads for the current model, the Stealth Plus 8-degree model. So all things being equal, this is a great example of old versus new, and the customer walked away with an unbelievable result with his same shaft. I mean, so literally it was the exact same shaft, just swapping out old head versus new head, and he had a completely different result. So although this isn't going to be a full-blown product review or a head-to-head comparison, you could potentially use it that way, especially if you are rocking last year's Sim 2 driver, because there were a couple noticeable differences that we will touch on a little bit later. So let's take a look at the customer's baseline shots while also helping you understand a little bit more about the player profile. So tonight's customer is playing to about a 7 to 8 handicap with an average swing speed of 116 to 117 miles an hour. So although a little faster on a swing speed chart, please don't let this discourage you from watching the rest of the video, because the information we're about to talk about will transcend across golfers of all swing speeds. And when you take a look at the customer's 3 best shots out of his initial grouping, there's really nothing to brag about. Not only was he struggling to find center of the fairway, tighten up the dispersion across the face, but he was also having some issues with some excess launch conditions, which led to some high apexes. I'm talking about apexes north of 160 feet. And please hear me out. Yes, the name of the game is high launch, low spin, but there's no good reason why we would ever want to hit the ball that high. Heck, I might even go as far to say that my max threshold is about 135 feet for my faster swing speeds. So guys, just please keep that in the back of your mind. Generally, this would be the point where we will dive into the numbers to find out what's really going on, but there's something very unique about the customer's build that we need to address first and foremost, especially when I tell you that the customer was standing at 6 foot 5 inches tall. So for somebody that's 5 foot nothing, that's like the equivalent of looking up to Andre the Giant here. So for all my wrestling fans that's out there, you will get the reference, but just know for a hobbit, that's super, super tall. And typically when I am working with customers of this height, I'm going to be looking at a playing length north of 45.5 inches. So I'm thinking maybe 46 inches, maybe even 46.25 inches, but not for tonight's customer. I'm talking about my customer was playing a Sim 2 8-degree driver with the Ventus Black 7X shaft chopped down to 45 inches. You heard me right, 45 inches. And yes, there are some benefits with going shorter driver length, but when you take this into consideration, the customer was even choking down on his driver an extra inch. And when I asked him, why are you choking down on such a short driver? He said, this is the only way he can keep the ball in play. He just feels he can control it a little bit better. When we take a look at the shots, these are the 3 best shots out of his initial grouping. And we are looking at both the club and ball data, and we will throw up little highlighted boxes around the numbers that we're talking about, so that way you can follow along. But when we're really trying to understand what is leading to the poor distances, the poor apexes, and those bad launch windows, right? We don't really have to look any further than that of dynamic loft. I mean, just take a look. 21 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 degrees. Now, once again, this is probably compounded because he's choking down on that 45-inch driver and he's hitting more up on the ball, and we verify that by looking at his AOA. He's hitting up on it 7.7. So guys, this is definitely a big issue and a really big red flag, because we know the ideal dynamic loft that we want with a driver to really be around +3, +4, maybe even +5, capping it off of static loft. So if you have an 8-degree lofted driver, really like to see our dynamic loft range to be right around 11 to 13. That would be really comfortable, but we're nowhere close to that. And that is definitely what's leading to those high launches of 21 and 19, as well as those bad apexes of 166 and 147. Now, there is one shot in here that could potentially be our very first good bad shot. So it's that last one at 107 feet. All we got to do now is we got to verify by looking at the other numbers. So when we cross to the left, it missed its target by 152 feet to the left, so that's a red check mark. It did not check the box. We further go to the left, backspin was 1645. We know that once we go under 1800, that's when the wheels start to come off and we start to lose stability, and that ball is just going to nosedive or knuckle out of the sky. So once again, I would not classify this as a good bad shot because it only yielded 290 at 314. Although it was his best total, it just was an unhealthy total. Now, full disclosure, we tried a number of different options in an attempt to breathe new life into the Sim 2 driver. It didn't matter what shaft, what combination we tried, nothing appeared to work. And it really wasn't until we made the head change. And as soon as we swapped out the head for the brand new Stealth Plus 8-degree driver, using the upright loft sleeve setting and sliding that front weight a little bit more in the heel, were we able to see the results we were hoping to see. And as you can tell from these 3 best shots, it's definitely night and day difference. Not only were we able to bring the ball a little tighter to the center line, bring the apex down, but we was also able to help the customer hit the ball in the air north of 300 for the very first time. This is really good, and when we take a look at the compare tab, this just really backs it up. Ball speed picked up. We actually gained an extra 13 mile an hour ball speed. Why? Because we're no longer choking down on a driver. Customer's still using his stock shaft, his Ventus Black 7X shaft or his gamer shaft that he purchased, and it's actually playing at the 45 inches now. So although I think he might be better served if he goes a little longer, this one just definitely still performed a little better. His launch came down to 14.7, backspin normalized right around 2200, and then just take a look at the net gain. 24 extra yards carry, 325 total. And once again, you know, this is good, but I don't believe this is optimum for the customer yet. So this leads me to really the main purpose of tonight's video is there such a thing as a good bad shot? So let's find out. Sure enough, when we take a look at the numbers, these are exactly what I would classify as a good bad shot. And the reason why they're still bad shots is because of the delivery side of the fence. I mean, take a look at our dynamic loft. We're still pretty high at 19.2. Dynamic lie angle is a lot better, so this would actually get a green check mark. Instead of being 6 to 7 down, we're only 3.5 down, so we cut that in half. So that's a positive improvement. Angle of attack still hitting up on the ball, and efficiency is still pretty low. So although the customer picked up an extra 5-mile-an-hour club head speed, we would expect the ball speed to pick up, but at that newfound speed, his ball speed should be even higher than that of what we're seeing now. And although 170 is better than that of the Sim 2 driver, it's still nowhere near where he can be optimal. And really, customer has two choices he can make. One, he can shell out another $350 to go with a brand new Ventus shaft at a longer playing length. I would never recommend adding an extension to a shaft in an attempt to save money. It's just not a good approach. So definitely record that in the back of your mind. It's always easier to take the length off than it is to add it back, because it's never going to play to the manufacturer's design specs when you do that, right? So just keep that in the back of your mind. The other thing he can do is he can actually stay in the current shaft, which is producing some really good output numbers, and just work on his technique to see if we can bring dynamic loft down and bring his AOA down, and that will likely prevent less of a glancing blow, and that will definitely improve his ball speed outputs to actually get the ball to be a little bit more penetrating and come off the face a little hotter. But that takes time. So once again, two choices and two pathways the customer can take, but it really does kind of come down to the customer. But in regards to why they are good shots, just look. I mean, peak apex, you know where my threshold is. Want to keep that right around 135. 145 was the max. Backspin, 2200. Ideal backspin for this speed, 1900 to 2200. So that checks the box. Carry in total, that also checks the box. So this is why I would classify these as good bad shots. Customer would definitely be in a better situation by just swapping out the driver head. And if he either works on his technique or decides to swap out a shaft, I'm pretty confident that these numbers would only get better. So in closing, we truly hope you found value in this information we shared with you today. And if nothing else, we'll at least now hope you have a little better understanding of what is a good bad shot and why your club fitter may be ecstatic to see good bad shots during the fitting process, especially if you are on maybe a limited budget or you have to work on your technique to bring you the rest of the way there. So guys, if you have any questions or comments, please do me a favor. Just leave them in the remarks below and I'll do my very best to help you find the answers that you're searching for. So until next time, don't forget to take a look at one of these videos over here, because there just might be a couple golden nuggets that can help you take your game to another level. So thanks again for watching.